Hi, I'm Mark Lackey, and I'd like to help you compose a canon. Now, this video will assume that you already know some basic two-voice counterpoint writing, and that you already know the definition of a canon. So let's get started. Now, you may be inclined to start putting notes on paper, start putting notes in your notation software right away, and start knocking out this assignment. I'm not sure that's the most efficient way to work. Let me suggest step one, create a chord progression, because whatever harmonies are implied by those first few notes will be repeated as those first few notes are echoed by the follower voice and then repeated again as they get copied into the next statement, and so on and so on. And so the good chord progression is the foundation for a good canon. Something as simple as the perfect authentic cadence might be a good basis for your chord progression, something that moves strongly to tonic. And let me suggest that you start with something other than tonic so that when it does repeat, we don't just have tonic and then more tonic. So start with something other than tonic and then move smoothly and convincingly to tonic in a chord progression. While you're working out this chord progression, decide how many measures you want your initial statement to be. Is this a 2-measure chord progression, or 1 measure, or 4 measures? And are we working in 2/4 time, or 3/4, or 4/2? What's our meter? What's our harmonic rhythm? Do we want 2 chords in a bar, 4 chords in a bar? Do we want bum, 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 chord, chord, chord? Think about your harmonic rhythm, and this will set up a good foundation for a good canon. Now, this process, this step one, will require some trial and error, most likely, as it did for me, as you can see in my example right here. You'll see that I've decided to work in common time with the harmonic rhythm that you see here, and my harmonies move from dominant to tonic. The 5 initially moves to a 6 chord, a deceptive resolution, which allows for a prolongation of that dominant. So I have 5, and then a few predominant chords, 5 again, and the tonic. And those predominant chords move 6, 4, 2, a pattern of falling thirds. Finally, you'll see in the space below that, I've written out the notes in each chord. This is simply to save me a little work later. Step 2, begin composing your Duke's or leader voice up until the point where the follower will come in. This is simply a matter of choosing notes from the chords in our original chord progression to create a good line. Step 3, copy this initial bit of music into the next measure or measures as your follower part. For your first canon, you might want to write a canon at the octave. So, for example, if your first note enters on D5, your follower might enter on D4 and copy that line an octave lower. I've chosen to copy the line at the unison, at the same pitch level in the same octave. This introduces some challenges because sometimes the Dukes will be higher and sometimes it will be lower than the comace or the follower. And I have to be aware of this as I compose my 2-voice counterpoint. Step 4, compose some counterpoint in the leader voice to fit together with what you now have in the follower. For this step, we will remember the rules of 2-voice counterpoint, composing with mostly consonant intervals, and where there are dissonances, handling them in special ways, as passing tones, as suspensions, etc. The notes that we choose will come primarily from that chord progression we worked out back in step 1. That will be our guide. And finally, we want to enjoy the rhythmic flexibility and variety that's possible. Rather than one-to-one or first species counterpoint, give the 2 voices some independence. Step 5, take what you've just composed in the leader voice, copy it in the following measure or measures as the follower, and repeat the process. Now that you understand the process, simply repeat these steps until you have a canon of the length that you want. For this example, I've kept it very brief, just a dozen measures or so. Step 6. Once you have repeated this process a sufficient number of times to create the scale of piece that you want, then compose your cadence. For a final cadence in common practice style, very often what we see is a cadential 6/4 followed by a 5 chord resolving to the tonic. To create this effect in a two-voice texture, what I've done is given in that penultimate measure, you'll see a perfect fourth above the dominant resolving to a third to imply the 5 chord, and then in that extra measure that I've tacked on at the end, resolving to tonic on the downbeat to give a strong sense of arrival. I hope this video has been helpful. Please subscribe to my channel, check out marklackey.net, and follow me on Facebook and Twitter. Thanks for watching.